Welcome back to our Commercial Real Estate Basics series. Today we're breaking down expense stop leases, a common lease structure that affects how operating costs are shared between landlords and tenants. What is an expense stop lease, you ask? An expense stop lease is a commercial lease agreement where the landlord agrees to pay operating expenses up to a certain amount, which is known as the stop, and the tenant pays any cost above that amount. This amount is negotiable and usually applies to new buildings where there is no history of expenses. Think of it as a cost cap. The landlord covers expenses up to a point, and the tenant takes care of the rest. The stop amount is usually expressed as a cost per square foot and is often based on historical operating expenses or a negotiated figure. Here's how it works. The landlord and tenant agree on an expense stop amount, usually based on actual expenses from a base year or a fixed dollar amount. If actual costs stay below the stop, the landlord pays for it all. But if costs go above it, the tenant reimburses the excess. An expense stop lease is not the same as a base year lease. In a base year lease, the tenant pays increases over a specific year's expenses. With an expense stop lease, the limit is a fixed, often negotiated number, regardless of the year. Let's say the expense stop is set at $5 per square foot. If actual expenses are $4.75 per square foot, the tenant pays nothing extra. But if expenses rise to $5.50 per square foot, the tenant pays 50 cents per square foot for their lease space. When negotiating expense stop leases, landlords and tenants should clarify: 1, what's included in operating expenses; 2, how the stop amount is set; 3, how future expenses will be calculated. Expense stops help landlords control risk. They know their maximum exposure to operating costs, and tenants share in any increases beyond the agreed amount. Expense stop leases allow landlords to cap their expense exposure and pass rising costs to tenants. Tenants benefit from a predictable cap on what the landlord will pay. It can also encourage landlords to manage expenses carefully, since they're still responsible for costs up to the stop. Tenants benefit from predictable base costs, knowing that the landlord covers expenses up to the agreed stop amount. One key consideration for tenants is that expense stops are often set during the first year of the lease. If the building's operating costs are low that year, future increases may hit the tenant's budget harder. If the stop amount is set too low, tenants could face high annual increases. If it's set too high, the landlord may end up covering more costs than intended. Negotiating a fair expense stop amount is difficult and critical. Tenants or their broker should review historical expense data from similar buildings and consider requesting caps on certain categories like management fees or utilities. Here's an example. A 20,000 square foot tenant with a $6 expense stop and $6.75 in actual cost will pay 75 cents per square foot times 20,000, which equals $15,000 in additional rent for that year. If this $6.75 number has been budgeted, it can be billed 1/12 each month of that year. Always ensure your lease includes audit rights. This allows you to review the landlord's expense calculations to confirm they're accurate and comply with the lease terms. Expense stop leases can work well for both parties when negotiated carefully. Expense stop leases can protect both landlords and tenants, but details matter. Have questions about expense stops or other lease structures? Drop your questions in the comments below so I can answer them in a future video, or direct message me. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more commercial real estate insights.